Welcome back. This particular video is going to be about budgeting. Quick intro, my name is Jason Walters. Thank you for watching this series. As I said, this particular video we're going to basically do a very quick and cover budget. This way you can at least figure out how you're going to go about getting to the racing venue once you figured out the car. This way you can also kind of figure out how often you're going to run. So basically budget. How much money is this going to cost you for a season? First question is, how often are you going to run? That's going to be your big thing. Are you running week to week? Are you running for points? Are you just running when you can? Or just going to kind of cover a couple of shows during the season just to make an appearance on a track? That's going to basically be your very, very biggest effort. Figure out how often, where, when, and how you're going to run. Without that information, this budget is going to be completely pointless before you even get started. Now, the next question is, how are you going to transport your vehicle? A tow vehicle and trailer is going to be absolutely mandatory unless you're one of those diehardists that have a vehicle that you drive to and from the track. But then again, what happens if you wreck the car on the track? Now you got to get it home. So then you basically got to figure out how to get it home. And that sucks if you're 500 miles from home and you got to have a car for work on Monday. Or you got to get home on Monday and it's Sunday night and you're sitting in a parking lot with a wrecked car. So this is just stuff to really, really think about. Next question. Your tow vehicle. Now you got to basically figure out where you're running, how often you're running, and where it is. Figure out how many times you're running, then figure out the miles to and from the event. Figure out how many miles you're going to basically get with a vehicle that you're looking at. This can basically figure out what it's going to cost you for gas for your tow rig. It's going to get expensive, trust me, especially if you're running something like a dually, or if you're really, really, heaven forbid, have the money for a big old rig and trailer. Then you're talking gallons per mile in some cases. Maybe you're a little bit easier and you can get away with basically towing a small car behind a small pickup. Then you can get a little bit better gas mileage and not going very far. Or you're basically lucky and live just a couple of miles from the track. Then you're even better. As we said, next option, pit passes. This is going to add up week to week. Figure about $25 for most events in most locations for the pit pass. Road racing, some of the others for the weekend get a little bit more expensive, but figure out what the budget is to get in the gate. The other question is, are you taking people with you for pit crew? You're going to have to budget in money for that too. And then figure out how much it is for extra crew that you're taking with you for anybody. Maybe you're taking the wife and kids. There's extra money that you got to worry about. The other question is, are you staying the weekend? So then you got to basically figure out if you're camping, and then of course you got to figure out if you're tenting, taking an RV, doing sleeping in the car hauler, or if you basically need to rent a hotel room for the weekend, depending on where you are. And then of course you can't forget food. You're going to need food for the weekend, for the week, or the event for the afternoon. And especially if you're running in the summer, you're going to need fluid and everything. So figure out some type of budget concern for basically having extra food on hand for whether it's an afternoon or a weekend. This is something else to figure out for your budget. The other question is, once we basically figure that out, so basically coming up really quick, what we've got so far. Tow vehicle. How many times are you running? Pit passes, entry fees for any extra people you're bringing with, how you're staying at the event, any extra people you're taking with. Now we can basically get into one other thing. Fuel. Well, we've already covered the tow vehicle. How are we going to basically power the car? Does your series run pump gas? Does your series run race gas? Does your fuel basically even matter if you're running electric? Then you got to figure out your generator and how to basically keep the vehicle powered. If you're going something really weird like propane or methanol or something. That's another question. Figure out what type of fuel you are, how much fuel a vehicle usually uses in an event, and then you can kind of get an idea for each event. This is how much it costs. Say you basically run a lawnmower. You use like 2 gallons for an afternoon. Okay, so you're doing like 10 events, so do the math there. So that would basically be your example. Use 2 gallons. Say it's like $3 a gallon. So 2 gallons times 10 events, you're looking at like 30 or 40. Sorry, my math. Mine is blanking on the math, but it doesn't matter. But you can kind of get the idea. The other question is, once we get into the vehicle, now we got to figure out maintenance issues, replacement parts, keeping the vehicle on track, shocks, body panels, tires, rims, Hans device, fire suit, racing helmet. That's all stuff that you need to take into account for maintenance. Replacing the vehicle, maybe you basically end up wrecking. You got to go through motors like crazy. That's another thing to consider. Week-to-week maintenance on the vehicle. The stuff that might get damaged. Modifies a perfect example. They go through body panels like crazy, at least at our local dirt track does. So that's stuff that's got to get replaced every week. Do you have to get a new set of tires every week if you're road racing? Can you get through an entire season on one set of tires? Maybe you can use used rubber from somebody else. That'll help your budget quite a bit. Especially if you do autocross, you can get used race rubber really cheap. And then you can get like 7 or 8 events out of it depending on how often you run. But that's all stuff that you need to really consider. The other question is, maybe little extra things. Do you want to do video equipment with you? That's another thing to take into account. That's also a good investment too. That way you can keep up, especially once we get into sponsors, that's where video equipment will basically come in, especially on its own. And we'll discuss that when we do a sponsorship and video taping too. But on that note, thank you for helping. Hopefully it kind of gave you a quick rundown of what you need to at least look at and do some research on. Thank you very much.